405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
I don't know how else to begin the show other than just by exhaling, sighing. It's been quite a 24 hours, man.
You think?
Let's rewind and just take stock of everything that has transpired over the last 24 hours. Oklahoma gets punked at the 11th hour in the recruitment of their top wide receiver target in the 2026 cycle. Their quarterback's Venmo activity becomes the number one story across social media. And that, it feels like it should be a much bigger deal than it is right now, that Oklahoma just got their longtime top overall target on the defensive side of the football committed not 3 hours ago. Jake Krell, earlier today on the Pat McAfee Show, announced his commitment to the University of Oklahoma. Krell, of course, a 4-star or 5-star, depending on the service you prefer, defensive end out of IMG Academy down in Orlando, Florida. In recent weeks, his recruitment had come down to Oklahoma, to Texas, and to Ole Miss, but this was primarily a Red River battle, Grayson. And quite frankly, if we look at recent history here, Oklahoma has done a fantastic job in head-to-head battles against Texas on the trail. They beat Texas for Michael Fasusi last cycle, most memorably. But they beat Texas head-to-head for Jaden Jackson. They beat Texas head-to-head for Danny Okoye. They beat Texas head-to-head for Eli Bowen, although they very obviously had the inside track there. They beat Texas head-to-head for Cortland Guillory. And now they beat Texas head-to-head for Jake Krell. Brent Venables got a pretty strong record over the last couple of years against Steve Sarkisian. He's doing all right in that department, at least as it pertains to recruiting. Now the next step is Now the next step is evening the score on the playing field, because thus far his record against Sark is 1-2, and neither of those two losses have been particularly exciting football games to watch.
No, they have not. But it's a happy day when it comes to Jake Krell because, look, I was in this camp too. When he moved up his recruitment date, after he said, I just need to see OU win, that sounded problematic to me. That sounded like the worst case scenario because if you just compare timelines, they don't seem to match up if you're going to choose Oklahoma. But the reality of this is, relationships still matter. They still do matter. They're going to have to be married with money now. I don't think there's anything in the world that's wrong with that, but some people do, whatever. But they do still matter. And this is a guy that Oklahoma's been after for the better part of 2 years plus. And when you build that relationship and you sell somebody on a scheme fit, especially a scheme fit, is what stands out to me here because he does fit the edge rush type that Oklahoma is going to want with Brent Venables' system. So you marry all that together and you pony up the dollars for an elite pass rusher, which is one of the anchor positions that you have to have when you build a football team. You need somebody to go get the other team's quarterback. This is a good win for Oklahoma. And the sky's not falling at Oklahoma. The sky's not falling in college football. And it's a good day. And I hope it stays a good day, well, I guess until we have to talk about Davian Gross. But
yeah, and we're going to have to talk about that pretty quick here. Mark and Blanchard with an interesting point, though, before we get there. Next year, OU could possibly have 3 IMG Academy grads on the defensive line. Great point, Mark. David Stone. Jaden Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Krell. That tracks. OU's done well at IMG since Brent Venables got to town. They've done very well at IMG. So let's talk about Davian Gross, because we got all hour to talk about Jay Krell, and we no doubt will. But let's just put this to bed. Listen, this right here, this situation and the way everything unfolded in the final hours with Davian Gross is why I encourage everyone to get subscribed at OUinsider.com if you aren't already and you want to follow all things Oklahoma recruiting. Because I have this radio window from 12 to 3 every single day. Anything that happens outside the hours of 12 to 3, I don't get to talk about until the following day at noon, at least on this platform. At OUinsider.com, we are tracking all the developments on the recruiting trail round the clock and providing you with updates in real time. So here's how yesterday afternoon went for me, Grayson. It was a series of phone calls on my drive home after the show. And to be clear, I said on these airwaves yesterday, and it was the feeling at the time across the entire industry, that Davian Gross, in all likelihood, would be in Oklahoma sooner when his decision came down at 7:30. It was about 10 minutes after we wrapped up Locked In yesterday that I was driving home and got a call from someone very well connected down in the state of Florida. And that individual told me, hey, I know everybody thinks it's OU right now. It's not. It's going to be Florida. And I said, hold up. It's for sure going to be Florida? You're telling me it's absolutely 100% going to be Florida? And this individual said, yes, it's going to be Florida. I promise you. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to hit you back. So I begin making some calls on the OU side of things. For the next couple of hours, until about 5 p.m., Grayson, the word I'm getting from within the Switzer Center is, no, everything's good. We feel like we're getting Davian Gross tonight. We have no reason to think otherwise. So you have the Florida side expressing confidence out of nowhere. And OU clinging to the belief that they're still in line to get the kid's commitment. Meanwhile, as I understand, there are ongoing conversations between Gross and his family and both schools down the stretch. 5 p.m. rolls around, just a little over 2 hours from Gross's decision, and the confidence starts to ebb away on the OU side. And reality begins to set in. Oh, this is taking a left turn on us. It does look like this kid is going to wind up a Florida Gator. And that's exactly what happened. 5 hours before Davian Gross committed to Florida, the expectation, again, across the entire industry, the consensus among local and national reporters was that Davian Gross was going to be committing to Oklahoma. And Florida managed to swing it. And unfortunately, folks, that's just something that happens these days. I don't like it any more than you do. Every time something like this happens, you inevitably get 4 or 5 people on the message boards or in your Twitter replies like, I hate recruiting. I can't stand it anymore. Look, I get it. I understand. And it sucks when you're on the losing end of a battle like that. From where I stand, I don't like expressing confidence that a kid's going to commit to Oklahoma because every single source I have within the OU building has expressed confidence for weeks and weeks and weeks that this kid is coming to Oklahoma, only for him to go ahead and commit to another school because things take a drastic late turn in the final hours. I don't like that. Again, all I can do is just relay what I'm told, but it still makes me look bad when something like that happens. I am pleased to say that members at OUinsider.com over the final few hours of that process yesterday leading up to the decision were apprised of every single development. If you were on the OUinsider.com VIP forum, you knew how everything was unfolding with the Davian Gross situation. But regardless of all of that, Grayson, this puts Oklahoma in a real bind at wide receiver in the 2026 cycle because at this point, they've struck out on darn near everybody this summer. All of their targets that they hosted for official visits in the month of June, Jordan Clay, Dallas Dickerson, obviously you throw Gross in there as well, Zachary Turner. Who am I missing? I know those aren't the only ones, but every single wide receiver that took an official visit to Oklahoma in the month of June as an uncommitted prospect has now committed elsewhere. The Sooners have held on to their lone verbal pledge at the position in Daniel Odom, who has stayed committed since January. But outside of that, Oklahoma has gone over at the wide receiver position.
I mean, Jaden Pettit, too, you can throw into that mix as well. And this is why I disagreed with the sentiment that, oh, it's just another wide receiver. We shouldn't have to go pay up for a wide receiver. They're a dime a dozen. The situation is what makes this more urgent, is that you only have one committed right now. So when you're in a situation like that, I don't think you should be hesitant to spend money, especially at a cornerstone position, because I still believe wide receiver is a cornerstone position of a football team. You look back through the national champions of years past, the only one in the last 10 years that didn't have wide receiver production that stood out, that really stood out, was Michigan in 2023. And that's because of how that Michigan team was built and how their coach runs things. Oklahoma does not fall into that category. So if you look at Ohio State, you look at Georgia, you look at Alabama in 2020, obviously LSU in 2019, you have to have wide receivers. You just do. But the other key there is that most of those teams had wide receivers that had been in the program. So there's a real value to getting these guys out of high school and developing them. And this is where we get to Emit Jones. Because I'm not going to talk about Emit Jones, the recruiter, right now, because I think it's really hard to pinpoint blame on one single person in recruiting in the year 2025. I just don't think that is fair without a nuanced discussion. But his work is cut out for him as a retainer. He's got to retain the dudes he's already gotten in, and he's got to develop them. Because right now, Oklahoma is in a more than stressful situation right now when it comes to wide receiver. That's the situation. So you've already got guys in the building. Dude, you have to develop these dudes. You have to give them confidence that if they stick around, they'll be developed. And then you've got to get them to stick around. That's the urgency now for Emit Jones.
And look, I know for a fact, and people are asking about it, because of course they're going to. Yeah, Davian Gross got a good number at Florida. He's a talented football player. Wherever he landed, he was going to make a good deal of money and have a good deal of money on the table for him. He got a good number at the University of Florida. That much I know. But I'm honestly a little bit refreshed, Grayson, at the way that some folks are taking this on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. This 405 listener says, Lincoln Riley would have got the receiver and not the defensive end. Do with that what you will. Fair point.
That is fair.
There was another listener that said, and this is Glenn from Nashville chiming in, Parker, you know I've been very critical of Jim Nagy. But in this case, I think he played the Gross thing perfectly. Do not overpay for a wide receiver. Overpay for offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and quarterbacks, but not wide receivers. I give credit where/when credit is due.
See, the texter and I disagree there. I don't think you should overpay for a bevy of wide receivers, but I do think there are wide receivers that command big dollars. Because, again, if you go back through the list of national champions, you don't find too many that are devoid of wide receiver production. Wide receiver is a very, very important position in a football team. Did we not learn this at Oklahoma last year, that you have to have quality wide receivers? And, Parker, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here by saying Florida didn't overpay for Davian Gross. He got a good number, but they didn't overpay.
He's an incredibly gifted football player. and I brought this up in June, mentioned it again last month, I'll mention it again here. Florida's entire pitch to Davian Gross has been, you're going to be the next Percy Harvin. That's how we're going to use you in this offense. That's what we think you are capable of. That's the type of role you can have here in Gainesville. And so that, combined with a lucrative financial pitch, you understand why that would have hit home for a kid like that. It makes sense. It still stings, though, that this one looked like it was going OU's direction for the longest time, and then in the final hours took a swing towards the Gators. The bigger concern, though, is where do you go from here? And for Oklahoma in the 2026 class, the wide receiver position, the options are getting real limited.
Well, what about our guy, Braden Allen, that we briefly brought up yesterday?
That looks like your best chance to add a second wide receiver, doesn't it?
Is he the last chance to add a wide receiver?
He's not the last chance. OU's involved with other wideouts. They're staying in contact with other wideouts. There may be wideouts committed elsewhere, Grayson, that wind up showing up to Norman for a game day early in the 2025 season. A lot of that's still hanging in the balance, but I know Oklahoma has options that they are keeping on the table. At a certain point, though, you got to win one, right? And that's why I think Jake Krell's commitment was so timely for Oklahoma today, because in the immortal words of Kevin Malone, it's just nice to win one.
Yeah,
and Oklahoma needed to win one. It had been 5 weeks since their last commitment, and after the kick to the groin that the Gross decision represented last night, to land your longtime top defensive target, especially given that it was a head-to-head battle with Texas, it's exactly the shot in the arm that this fan base seemed to need. The question now, how do you figure out wide receiver? What do the solutions look like down the stretch? And what other holes can you fill here in this recruiting class down the stretch in the 2026 cycle in order to make most satisfied with the haul that you wind up signing come early signing day in December? 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Much more ahead as we continue to talk OU football and Cruton with all of you. Keep it here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. We'll be back.
I'm Noble McIntyre, and I'm the father of 3 daughters. Protecting them has been my highest priority.
Protecting the vulnerable should be the responsibility of all of us. Every year, thousands enter residential treatment facilities seeking safety and care.
Reports of abuse, including sexual and physical abuse of minors in their care, plague these institutions for years. Major facilities have been investigated, shut down, and staff convicted, but the problem persists.
If you or a loved one have suffered abuse, call McIntyre Law at 405-777-7000.
More than 600,000 Oklahomans have disabilities. We can't afford to leave great employees behind just because they do things differently.
Who we are and what we accomplish
Are much more important.
Hire an Oklahoman with a disability and gain dependability, commitment, and lower turnover. Reach out. Oklahoma Rehabilitation Services, okdrs.gov, 1-800-845-8476.
Feeling stuck in your current home? Now is the best time to make a move. Home Creations is making home ownership more affordable with low interest rate opportunities and special financing. Don't wait. Live like a champion today. Call Holly at 405-364-9999 to find your dream home.
364-9999 means Home Creations.
At Armstrong Bank, your business isn't just business to us, it's personal. Our bankers are invested in your success, and we're ready to build a relationship that lasts. You deserve a strong financial partner by your side. Together, we can help make your business even stronger with products and services designed for your convenience. To learn more, visit a location near you or visit armstrong.bank. Armstrong Bank, strength runs in our family. Member FDIC.
I'm State Farm Agent Julia Chu, and you already know our office is a place to turn for your insurance and financial needs. Now that place has changed to 701 Wall Street. While the location may have changed, the commitment of our team is as strong as ever. So whether you already know us or want the one-of-a-kind service offered by the Julia Chu Agency, call us at 329-3311 or come visit at our new location, 701 Wall Street, right on the corner of Boardwalk and Wall Street in Norman.
I'm Gina Mitchell of Mitchell's Jewelry. We take our tagline, "Where Oklahoma gets engaged," to heart. Engagement rings, so many different styles and price ranges. We even have rings that are ready for a proposal this weekend. However, if a custom, one-of-a-kind design is your style, that's our specialty. Natural diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, or colored gems. Let us create her dream ring. Stay in the loop with us on our socials or at mitchells-jewelry.com or come see us at 2201 West Main in Norman.
Buffalo Wild Wings is now hiring for their brand new state-of-the-art remodeled store for the Moore location. Stop by the Moore location from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily and apply now. Competitive pay, team member discounts, incentive contests, insurance options, and flexible scheduling. This is the perfect opportunity for you or someone you know needing a job. With training starting soon, now is the time to apply at Buffalo Wild Wings in Moore. Stop by today from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Would you like to play a more active role in your health? At Hightower Clinical, we believe all Oklahomans should have access to new potential treatment options through clinical trial participation. Our team wants to support you with the best care possible through clinical trials. No health insurance is required. Compensation is available for eligible study participants, and study care is provided at no cost.
Having the chance to go through a trial and find out if something works for them and makes their life easier, I would recommend them do it.
To learn more, scan this QR code and visit our website.
You're listening to Locked In here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Parker Thune alongside Grayson Singleton. Sooners all day. Sent us a text on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439 and said, I guess the part I struggle with the most is how can a player that has had his mind made up for months change and go to a completely different team, different state, different coaches, etc., all in a matter of hours based on a bag of money alone? Honestly, as a true Sooner fan, if he's swayed that easy, we don't need or want him anyway. Not the kind of culture that Venables and staff are building. Look, Sooners all day, I would kick back against the notion that Davian Gross had his mind made up for months. Davian Gross was a guy that was agonizing over this decision for weeks after OVs. Now, Oklahoma was the school that most around him expected he would pick. Keep in mind, he goes to a high school at which his head coach is an OU grad. His offensive coordinator is a decorated former OU football player, wide receiver Travis Wilson, who played in the NFL for several years. And he's also teammates with a longtime Oklahoma tight end commit in Ryder Mix. Listen, you talk to anybody down there in that area that had any knowledge whatsoever of Gross's recruitment. Over the last several weeks, months, the word was the exact same. It's going to be Oklahoma. Unless something changes pretty drastically, it's going to be Oklahoma. Oklahoma's who he likes the best. In fact, I believe it was, I can't recall whether it was his mom that said this, his dad, someone close to him remarked to Rivals national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman that Oklahoma was the one school that did not make a mistake throughout the entire recruitment. And it still wasn't enough. And so I get your struggle, Sooners all day, if that's the way you feel. I understand that as a Sooner fan, you're going to look at a guy that had his mind changed in the process late, and your perspective is probably going to be, well, screw him, we'll win with him or without him, just like Barry Switzer used to say. That was Barry Switzer's recruiting pitch when he was at his peak. You can come to Oklahoma and win with us, or you can go somewhere else and we'll win without you. So I know that's the way that You'd love to look at things right now for Brent Venables in this program, but it ought to be acknowledged that Oklahoma could really use a guy like Davian Gross in the offense. He's someone you would much rather have than not.
One of the reasons that we're so high on Jaden Ott is because of his offensive coordinator and all of the creative things you can do with a guy who is as versatile as Ott is. Davian Gross, though he doesn't primarily play running back, is very, very similar in that vein. You talk about Florida selling him on, you're going to be our next iteration of Percy Harvin. You know why that is? Because he can do so much. That's what made Percy Harvin special and what kind of kept him around the NFL for as long as he was. That's the kind of guy we're talking about with Davian Gross. I also want to respond to people who have said, well, we don't need to get to pay that much money for a wide receiver out of high school, get one out of the portal and whatnot. Here is the cautionary thing that goes along with that. You will always pay more for an established product than one that still needs more work. So if you're talking about this from a financial standpoint and you're saying, well, let's be frugal with guys coming out of high school so that we can pay dudes coming out of the portal, it don't really work like that. Because if there's a dude on the market and you know he's good, especially if he's been Power 4 good, he's going to command a ton more dollars than if you had just signed a guy out of high school, retained him, and he becomes a star. So it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work like that.
And look, building continuity and developing your own talent is always going to be the most sustainable method.
No doubt.
In college football, and the most successful method. Let's take a look, for instance, at Oklahoma's defense right now. You know how many scholarship transfers Oklahoma has on the defensive side of the football right now?
Not very many.
4. Dominic Williams, Marvin Jones Jr., Kendall Daniels, Ricky Lolohea.
So really 3 that are going to be contributors.
3.5. But that's part of the reason why Oklahoma's defense is so strong. And it's part of the reason why expectations are so high for that unit going into 2025 is because they've all grown up together in the program. They've all grown up together. They've all played with each other for years at this point. Yes, you have some younger guys in the mix that haven't been around as long, but the central figures on this defense are guys that have grown up in the Oklahoma football program. Robert Spears Jennings, Grayson Halton, R. Mason Thomas, Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, Gentry Williams, so on and so forth. If you look at Oklahoma's wide receiver room right now, Grayson Singleton, the Sooners are carrying 14 scholarship receivers. Do you know how many of them are transfers?
5 or 6.
Doing a quick tally here. I should have counted before I asked you that question. That one's on me. 7.
Okay, half.
And even half of Oklahoma's scholarship wideouts are transfers. Came to Oklahoma via the transfer portal. No, I take it back. It's only 6. I got confused. I counted both the Gibsons, when in reality only one of the Gibsons is a transfer. But 6 of Oklahoma's 14 receivers are transfers. Now, do you want to have the flexibility to be able to go and pursue one transfer portal wide receiver every single cycle? I think that's probably a good approach.
Yes.
Because there are always pass catchers that are going to outperform their current program's status in college football. You're always going to be able to find a Giovanni Gibson every single year. There's always a Giovanni Gibson. Whether you land him or not is a different conversation. But there's always a Giovanni Gibson, if not multiple Giovanni Gibsons that are out there on the transfer market. And so wide receiver is one of those positions where it actually might be worth it to just hold a spot for a transfer every single year. But in a more general sense, you'd like to be able to build the nucleus, the foundation of your room with homegrown talent. And I think Oklahoma's on a path to do that with guys like Elijah Thomas and Zion Kearney and Ivan Carrion and Manny Choice. but they're not where they need to be yet. Let's sift through some texts on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. There were several that brought up they texted in similar sentiments, which is, I'll just read this one from the Jag because I think it's representative of probably 4 or 5 different texts that we got. Davian Gross wasn't alive when Percy Harvin was playing. Come on now. That doesn't really matter, Jag, because, for instance, growing up, if I had been a superstar running back recruit, which obviously I was not, but if I had been a 4-star running back recruit in the 2017 cycle, and some school had come to the table to recruit me and said, we see you as the next Barry Sanders, you think that would have meant nothing to me? I never watched Barry Sanders with my own 2 eyes. But guess what? YouTube exists. The internet exists. Books and TV shows and movies exist. I was well aware of the legend of Barry Sanders. And to this day, I don't know if, based on what I've seen, YouTube videos, highlight reels, etc., I don't know if there's a running back that has ever impressed me more on tape than Barry Sanders. Again, never watched him with my own 2 eyes, but that comparison would have meant something to me. So the Percy Harvin pitch, you're right. Davian Gross is not old enough to have watched Percy Harvin play football at the University of Florida. But especially in 2025, when all you got to do is type Percy Harvin highlights into YouTube and you'll have 100 different reels pop up faster than you can blink, it doesn't really matter. Evan from Blanchard says Percy Harvin is the best wide receiver at Florida since Percy Harvin. It's been 17 years. They don't develop that position. Ricky Pearsall was okay. Yes, he was. But he transferred from Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if Florida can even really take credit for developing him.
That is a fair point, though, because can you think of really good Florida wide receivers since that Percy Harvin, I guess Riley Cooper before he turned into Riley Cooper in the NFL?
Oh, my goodness. Riley Cooper, that's a blast from the past. Yeah, no, I mean, that is a good point, Evan.
It really is.
That is a good point. It's been a while since Florida had a superstar wide receiver, but even there, like, there's another side to that coin. Because if you're the Florida staff, you're telling Davian Gross, hey, come be the guy that our offense has lacked for years and years since Percy Harvin.
And I will say this, too. Florida also has not had good quarterbacks.
No, they really haven't.
They have not had good quarterbacks since. I guess Tim Tebow was a good college quarterback.
You remember the John Brantley days?
Ugh.
Jeff Driscoll.
And then we ended up
Jacoby Brissett.
I forgot about him.
Felipe Franks.
Felipe Franks, who ended up playing tight end. Graham Mertz, I think, is thrown in there. I guess Anthony Richardson was a good quarterback.
Yeah, he didn't suck.
Mechanically flawed.
The Bleeper says, I have to agree that we should have paid for Gross in our situation. Plus, he's a top 10 dude at wide receiver, not a top 30 dude.
Exactly my point.
And, yeah, look, we can argue that till the cows come home. I've said it many times, and I don't know if this is what people want to hear or not. I am not going to tout Jim Nagy as the savior of the Oklahoma football program, nor am I going to decry Jim Nagy as the man that is sinking this program into unprecedented mire. Because it's way too early to make that judgment. I'm going to give him, at the very least, the 2026 cycle to work his magic, whatever that looks like, and probably the 2027 cycle as well. Everybody wants to have an opinion on Jim Nagy 6 months into this thing. Y'all, it's perfectly okay not to have an opinion yet and not to feel like you need to have an opinion yet. Because it's not only has the book not been written on Jim Nagy at Oklahoma, the first chapter hasn't even been written on Jim Nagy at Oklahoma. So, I will very gladly go to war with any of you who stand blindly behind Jim Nagy as the man that's going to lead Oklahoma football back to greatness, because there's no tangible evidence that that's going to happen. But likewise, to any of you that are on social media or on the text line or on the message boards saying Jim Nagy sucks and this program should get rid of him before he can do further damage, I am also going to tell you that your opinion is so sensationalized, so overzealous at this point that I am perfectly willing and happy to simply dismiss it for the time being. Because you do not have to have an opinion, and I would argue you should not have an opinion on Jim Nagy one way or another, for better or worse, after 6 months. Several folks have brought up Mason James on the text line. Well, why wouldn't you just go take Mason James?
I was wondering
how
if
could
you
you
were
have
gonna
whiffed
get
on
to
all
those.
of these wide receivers and you still won't pick up the phone for Mason James? Look, folks, it is well documented that I think Mason James is a certified dude that is going to have an excellent career at the next level. If I was the general manager at the University of Oklahoma, I would have offered and taken Mason James. I am not the general manager at the University of Oklahoma. That is Jim Nagy's title. Jim Nagy, as someone who has spent close to 30 years in the scouting profession, is entitled to his own opinions, and he has the occupation, the platform that enables him to act accordingly. And so while I may disagree with the Oklahoma front office's evaluation of Mason James as a football player, again, I am perfectly willing to sit back and wait for it all to play out. And wait for Mason James to either make me look like a fool or make Jim Nagy look like a fool. And whatever happens, Lord knows, we will discuss it in great detail as it unfolds in front of our eyes, both in relation to what's happening at Oklahoma and for Mason James individually at the University of Washington. We have a ton of text on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line that we have yet to touch. So let's hit a quick break, get a final word in from our sponsors. Want to remind you the show is brought to you by Dorsey Jones GMC in El Reno. Family-owned and operated, fantastic service advisors out there, low-pressure sales environment. GMCs are some of the most reliable trucks and SUVs on the market today, so let Dorsey Jones GMC get you set up or take advantage of their half-price oil changes on Saturdays for your existing vehicle. Quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Ref, and this is Locked In on the Home of Sooner Fans.
A true Sooner fan wouldn't be caught dead without the KREF app. Join the Army. Get the app. Tell your friends. This is The Ref, where diehard Sooner fans listen.
Back to school means back to your favorite casino.
And Riverwind jackpots are back in session. Win with a spin on all your favorite electronic games.
Take your hand to the next level in our premier poker room.
Keep the good times rolling every Friday in August with your wild card.
Play for your share of the $200,000 Under Neon birthday giveaway.
And celebrate 19 years of the best food, drinks, and service in the Metro.
Only at Riverwind Casino.
The Norman Chamber of Commerce encourages you to shop small this summer. At Heyday, a day of fun awaits the whole family. Laser tag, mini golf, ropes courses, bowling, and an exclusive 21 and up area. And now Hey Pickle Pickle is the spot in Norman for pickleball, whether you are new or a pro. Heyday and Hey Pickle Pickle pack a ton of fun. Make a splash at Signature Pool and Patio, Norman's premier swimming pool service, cleaning, patio, spa, and pool accessory destination. Get your patio essentials, ledge loungers, pool floats, umbrellas, pool toys, grill necessities, and so much more. Plus, stay local and get all your bases covered at Play It Again Sports. Get new and quality used gear right here in Norman. Buy, sell, or trade new and used sports equipment, including baseball, softball, football, tennis, soccer, and more. Remember, shopping small this summer can make a big impact.
Built for success? How about Built by Law? Law Custom Homes and Construction is here to build your next home. With over 30 years of experience, Barry and Angela Law pride themselves on building the best quality homes in Norman. Locally owned and operated, Law Custom Homes and Construction can also help you with carpet, tile, siding, windows, granite, and roofing. Don't wait. Call Barry Law at 405-919-7118 and let Law Custom Homes build your next quality home. That's 405-919-7118.
Entrepreneurs and More Norman in South Oklahoma City have an experienced business partner in their neighborhood. More Norman Technology Center's workforce and economic development team understands the challenges entrepreneurs and small businesses face every day. From building an effective business model to hiring the right employees and managing cash flow, More Norman's business development experts can help you move forward confidently and thrive, knowing that you have a skilled partner at your side. Learn more about More Norman's Technology Center by calling 405-801-5000 or visit us online at mntc.edu.
Dreaming of an escape? What about a relaxing escape to your very own backyard? Signature Custom Pools can turn your dreams into reality. Signature Custom Pools creates distinctive designs to fit your perfect getaway. Call Signature Custom Pools for your free design consultation at 405-898-9098 or visit them online at signaturecustompools.com and turn your backyard into your dream escape.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
Many of our U.S. veterans and service members face challenges, mental health struggles, housing obstacles, food insecurity, and social isolation, to name just a few. I'm Bob Woodruff. My family and I started the Bob Woodruff Foundation in 2006 after I sustained a life-threatening injury while reporting from Iraq. Our service members had my back that day, and we need to have theirs now more than ever. At our foundation, we invest in solutions, so learn more about our work at bobwoodrufffoundation.org/success.
Final segment of Locked In here on the Ref. Parker Thune alongside Grayson Singleton, getting ready to turn it over to Teddy Lehman and Tyler McComas at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. They'll have you the rest of the workday on the Rush. I want to remind you that our NFL giveaway is coming up tomorrow. The Ref Army has always showed up big time for the 68-team giveaway and the Gridiron giveaway. Now we have one last event before football season starts. Wednesday, i.e. tomorrow, from 3 to 7 p.m., we've partnered with Buffalo Wild Wings for the NFL giveaway. The event is going to be at B-Dub's Edmond location off I-35 between 15th and 2nd. Going to have great prizes out there, instant giveaways as well. A new TV, fire pits, chair coolers, beer coolers, and much more. Instant hourly prizes as well, as I mentioned, including several $50 Visa gift cards. So make sure to come out to Buffalo Wild Wings this Wednesday from 3 to 7 and win big with the Ref and our exclusive sponsor of the NFL giveaway, Confidence Ford. Back to the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line because it has been an hour full of texts. Corey in KC wants to know, will OU continue to pursue Gross if it was as tough a decision as you're saying? Well, okay, this kind of goes hand in hand with another text from a listener, and I lost it, and I wish I could give credit to that listener, but I can't. They asked, hypothetically, if the money were equal on both sides, would Gross have chosen OU? And I think the answer to that question is assuredly yes, if for no other reason than the proximity factor and the familiarity factor for a kid like Gross. But, Corey, is OU going to continue to pursue Gross? I don't doubt that they'll keep in touch with him. Emit Jones is a maestro when it comes to relationships. When that dude establishes a relationship, he maintains it. So, yes, I believe Oklahoma will stay in touch with Davian Gross. Is there really any chance he flips to Oklahoma in the long run? I think, Grayson, the only world in which that happens is if OU plays really well this fall and Florida plays really poorly to the point where it becomes obvious that Billy Napier is getting fired. Because when we were still under the impression that Gross was going to pick OU, yesterday, as a matter of fact, on this show, I said, look, the harsh reality is even if Gross commits to Oklahoma, you still got to hold on to him. Because if you don't win games this fall, he will flip to Florida. Well, he committed to Florida in the first place this time around, so now the onus is on Florida to kind of choke it away with the kid. But unless that happens, no, I don't think he will be flipping to OU.
And oh, by the way, let's talk about Florida for a second, because Teddy brought this up yesterday. DJ Lagway is hurt again. He hurt himself at the beginning of camp, pulled a calf or something, after dealing with a shoulder during the spring. So Florida's in a really dicey situation here. And they're a team where people are going to need to see them win again. Otherwise, they could be right back in the same situation they were a year ago.
And listen, we got a lot of texters this hour that have been raking Jim Nagy over the coals for not being willing to pay up for Davian Gross. Can I just go ahead and bring up the fact that they did pay for Jake Krell? And keep in mind here, Grayson, they think highly enough of Jake Krell as a football player that they did what it took to land his commitment, and he is far from the type of surefire NFL body type that you've conventionally come to expect Jim Nagy and the OU front office to prefer. The guy's 6'2", 230 pounds. But if you flip on the tape, if you watch Jake Krell in pretty much any setting, it becomes clear that despite his physical limitations, he is capable of manhandling pretty much any offensive tackle you line him up against. And so the fact that Oklahoma was able to close the deal with Jake Krell, to me, indicates a number of things. One, the Sooner staff felt, okay, we've just invested too much time and effort into this one to let it take a turn on us at the 11th hour. Because if we're just comparing this recruitment to Gross, and that's a very easy thing to do because we just got resolutions on those two within 24 hours of one another. A year ago, OU hadn't even offered Davian Gross yet. They've been recruiting Jake Krell for over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel Chavis offered Jake Krell back in July of 2023. So they have sunk a ton of effort into this recruitment. So for me, that's the very first suggestion. The suggestion that OU closing the deal with Krell meant they felt like they had to have him at all costs because of the amount of time and effort they put in. And also, he's a good enough football player that you don't really have some of the same inhibitions that you might have about a conventional defensive end that's his size. Because most 6'2", 230-pound defensive ends aren't six-figure commodities for P4 institutions, Grayson. But Jake Krell, much like R. Mason Thomas, who graduated high school and showed up to the University of Oklahoma at 6'2", 216, he's cut a little bit different. A different breed of cat.
I'm going to say this, too. I'm going to give you the measurables of a former Sooner who is now in the NFL.
Okay.
And
I know where this is going.
And playing pretty damn well. This is him in the NFL right now. 6'3", 240. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing you know who I'm referring to right now.
Nick Bonito.
Nick Bonito.
Today voted the number 38 player
Number 38
in the NFL.
player in the NFL for my Denver Broncos. Also from the state of Florida, by the way. Here's the point. The conversation around pass rushing is totally different. Jake Krell could start as a defensive end. You know where he could end up? As a stand-up edge rusher, of which he would be the perfect size for. Jake Krell, because of his bend and because of his quickness and speed, you can deploy him in very different ways. The size does not concern me. Okay, if you want to bring up the shorter arms, I'm here for that. You got to be able to disengage and keep people away from your body. I understand that. I get that concern. But Oklahoma, albeit under a different regime, because Nick Bonito played for Lincoln Riley, has had success with undersized, conventionally undersized edge rushers. I think Jake Krell is going to be just fine, and I think whether it's at a three-point stance defensive end or a stand-up edge rusher, he has pro potential written all over him.
Tyson from Stigler says, Pat McAfee said he was 6'4". Yeah, look, I've been face-to-face with Jake Krell on several occasions. He's not 6'4". No way in hell is he 6'4". But that's okay.
And by the way, he's 17. He might still grow.
He might. But I tell you, a very real phenomenon in the recruiting world right now is that if you rewind 3 years or so, everybody wanted creatures. Big ol' lengthy freaks at defensive end. P.J. Adibawara is a great example of the type of edge rusher that everybody wanted circa 2022. They wanted big, 6'5", 6'6" dudes with freakishly long arms and good bend. And there's nothing wrong with an athlete like that, right? Here's the problem that it created, though. The problem that it created was that what ended up happening is that several elite prospects at the edge position wound up, no, crashing out isn't the right phraseology here. They didn't amount to much because there was a trend in the scouting and rankings side of things for a couple of years there with 24/7 and On3 and Rivals where, basically if any 6'6" creature like that made the transition from, say, basketball to football, never played football in your life, but now here you are on the gridiron for the first time as a junior, displaying these ridiculous athletic gifts. A guy like that, the recruiting services would fall in love with, and they'd overrank him because of the offers that he would pick up, because college coaches would fall in love with those types of kids. They would see a 6'6" dude, brand new to football, dominating competition at the high school level, when they're the best athlete out there on the football field. They'll think, we can do something with this. Well, come to find out, in the long run, you still have to be a football player to make it stick and to make it work at the P4 FBS level. You can't just be an athlete. You have to be a football player. And so a lot of the scouts, a lot of the recruiting services, and a lot of college coaches went all in on these freakishly large, raw edge rushers, circa 21, 22, 23, and precious few of those guys have actually worked out. And so over the last couple of years, the most desirable edge rushers, or I should say the prototypical edge rusher, has become smaller. The prototypical edge rusher these days is much more physically similar to a guy like Jake Krell or a guy like R. Mason Thomas. Remember last week when Texas Tech got the number 1 overall prospect in the 2027 class, an edge rusher from Georgia by the name of LaDainian Guyton? He's listed at 6'3", 225. So the ideal edge rusher within the collegiate ranks is much smaller than he was 3 years ago.
And and Jake Krell fits into that conversation. That's exactly where I was going, is that you no longer have to be Julius Peppers. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be that guy. Especially, and I'll take it a step further just so I don't, regurgitate everything you just said, which is on point. The way defensive coordinators scheme up their edge rushers is different today too. We've gone away completely from the 4-down lineman. That's a time that is way in the past. These are guys now that can drop into coverage sometimes, but they're more slender. Jake Krell fits into the modern edge rusher.
Slim Brady says, looking at you, PJ. Hey, to be clear, I think PJ is still going to be a really good college football player before it's all said and done. Because PJ is not the type of athletic project that I described for the most part. PJ had a background in football. PJ had a background as a tight end, transitioned to defensive end before his junior year of high school, and promptly delivered 17 sacks as a high school junior in a very competitive Kansas City area prep circuit. PJ also went to the Under Armour All-American game after signing with Oklahoma and freaking dominated everybody he lined up against. He is the right type of creature. And now that he's healthy, well, or getting there, he's struggled, been unavailable for a couple of practices early in camp with a hamstring issue. But once he gets healthy, I'm still a believer in PJ. Miguel Chavis is still a believer in PJ. Brent Venables is still a believer in PJ. He's got 2 more years of eligibility, folks. The clock ain't ticking, at least not like that. I think he's going to do all right for himself. And I certainly think Jay Krell is going to do all right for himself as well in an Oklahoma uniform. It takes all sorts at defensive end. And Miguel Chavis has built himself a room with all sorts of different body types and skill sets. We're done here on Locked In. The Rush is coming up next, folks. Tyler McComas and Teddy Lehman are taking over, so stay right here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.